Hey guys, welcome back to She Became Me Live. I'm back again with my crew. We just gonna do what we do. We're gonna talk about some conversations, some deep conversations. So today, we would like to talk about race relationships and what's currently going on in the world around us. We probably pretty much just gonna talk about how do we start these uncomfortable conversations at home, in the community, with family and friends and coworkers. So, go ahead. One of you guys just kick it off.
Well, I think we were having a good sidebar conversation about when did you finally, like that first time that you realized that you were black and you were different, right? And for me, because of the type of grandmother I had, it was immediately like, listen here, little black boy. And so that, and then having a name like Avicino and having to answer questions like, are you black? Are you Hispanic? You Puerto Rican? Cuban?
Right.
You know, depending on how my hair is a particular day, like, you from the DR? And I'm like, dude, no. You know what I mean? So I'll say for me early on, the conversations of not only being like being black, but what it is to be a young black man in Cincinnati. I had them early on.
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother and grandfather were business owners in Ohio, and it really wasn't popular for black people to own nothing. They owned a gas station. So even though I didn't realize what was going on with my grandparents and even my great grandfather, those conversations were always there for me from the beginning.
Okay.
What about you, ladies? Because you got some pondering.
I'm trying to think. You know, probably. Thinking back to elementary school, I had my first white teacher in third grade.
Okay.
Wow.
In third grade. And I was at public school, IPS 44.
Riverside, right?
Riverside, yes. And so, again, that was my first experience, a positive experience with like a white woman, you know, in third grade. And then, but I still went to school with mostly all black children.
Okay.
So it wasn't until fifth grade that me and my mother moved to further west, and myself, along with some kids that were bused to another IPS school, were put in a gifted class.
Oh, okay.
And that was the first time that I remember feeling different. Because then we were the black kids in the school that were quote unquote smart and different. And that was the first time when I started to experience you're different from other black kids.
Yeah.
And that is something that has stuck with me throughout, especially the times that we're in now.
Right.
That there is an attitude that, because when we talk about microaggressions in race talk,
Right.
that when there's something that a person feels makes another person different, you speak well, you're educated, your hair is this or that, just all of these things that say you're an anomaly, you're different. You're different from other black people. And that started way back then in fifth grade. Like, other black kids weren't smart.
Right.
Because they weren't in this class.
Right.
And so that is something, that's the earliest memory that I have, you know, of the black poor kids being put into this situation with these more affluent white kids.
Yeah.
That I can think of.
My first experience, I believe I may have been 4 or 5, and So I have white and black in my family. All of my mom and all of her siblings, they are all light, very, very light skinned with green eyes, great, all that curly hair. Well, my mom, I was really chocolate as a little girl, and so I can remember her being mad one time because a white lady asked her, like, is this your daughter?
Right.
Because she just was basically, she's light and I'm dark. So I can remember my mom being mad about that. So that was my first time with my mom explaining to me that whole situation. But when I was in the 6th grade, same thing. I was in an accelerated class, and being one of 2 blacks in a classroom full of white kids, and it is you're different, or you're not like them, or you're smart, like you're basically like you're one of us, but not one of them, but you're one of us. So so I can relate to that. So being 4 and 5, and then in the 6th grade.
I guess for me, ironically, I didn't experience it until I got to high school, the part you guys are talking about. Let me go back. First of all, when I went to Broad Ripple High School, and I graduated in 1984, Broad Ripple was considered one of the elite IPS high schools, and they had a magnet program. So of course, I went there for a magnet program, and in this magnet program, in Broad Ripple period at that time, it was primarily white kids. It just wasn't. It wasn't your typical IPS school. The black kids was kind of few, sprinkled out through the building, more likely more heavily in the sports or something, but not really. I was a cheerleader there, so I remember my freshman year is when I think it started to get blacker. My freshman year when I was there, we still had maybe 2 white girls on the freshman squad, but as I looked at the reserve and the varsity, it was more white girls than black. So it was starting to fade. And by the time I became a senior, of course, more black kids had integrated to Broad Ripple. And I too, within that magnet program, wasn't a lot of black kids in that. And then when my counselor put me in advanced English, I'll tell you what I did. I didn't like looking around and feeling like it was only maybe 2 black kids in there. And then I said, well, I don't like this. So I intentionally said, I'm going to flunk this class, and I want to be put back where I was more comfortable. And the question is, why was I uncomfortable? Why was I uncomfortable in the advanced English class? Because there was only a couple of black kids there. Well, here we are today with race relationships. It's because, in this country, I think it's taught. Because at some point somebody taught white kids that there's this certain thing about black people, or and you need to be careful, and you need to watch this, and kind of like what we're talking about, it's a couple good apples, but you got to pick them, and you got to pick them slow, and you got to pick them carefully, that type of thing. And I get that, and I get the fact that we do have some people in our race that can be very annoying, but guess what? Everybody does. What I particularly don't care for is that people are people in general, and every race, I mean every race, has the undesirables, because it's really just a human trait that we're talking about. It has nothing to do with color, but I just don't, what bothers me the most is that it's defined by color with one particular group. And when you can find people with those same character traits in every group, because it's really just a human trait. So those are the things that bother me the most, because I accept the fact that there are certain things that people try to associate with black people, but those same character traits is with everybody. It's just not televised, it's not written about, it's not talked about in the same mannerism, so it's kind of like a hidden thing. Because at the end of the day, everything that you see about black people is 2 or 3 times more potent in the white population, because there's more of them, but nobody talks about it. Or they give us false status about stuff. They put out any numbers they like. How do we know?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, you know, I just feel like we need to all judge each other individually and just throw that away.
Can I take it back for a second, because it was something that all three of y'all said that it didn't even hit me until now. Right, and everybody talked about being in a classroom setting. Everybody talked about being separated because of your abilities or intelligence level, right? And I didn't even realize that I went to Northwest. I grew up on 42nd and Post Road, but got shipped to Northwest High School for a magnet program, right? And I too was treated as a certain type of black person because I was in the magnet, and I didn't even realize it. But even through athletics and accolades, I thought that I was treated differently because I was just a football star, right? But then I think now back to the conversations of coaches, even some of the black coaches saying like, oh no, he's good enough to get a scholarship to a PWI, predominantly white institute. Him, we could probably get him in a HBCU, right? And I didn't even really think about that. So can we go back to that a little more, because I wonder, and I don't have an answer to it, but I wonder if other races, I know they do from a economic manner. They'll separate, you know, you got poor white trash, and then you have, but I wonder, do other races do it as much as, or have if they haven't done to them as much as we do, and is that what honestly leads to the assimilation that a lot of us go through when we're trying to break into that white corporate world? Because if you think about it, that process pretty much started at that elementary school or middle school or high school level with those academic classes where they're like, well, you know, Tina, I mean, we got a lot of black students, but that's Tina. Right. Like, Tina's good enough to go over here and be with the white people when she grows up, right? And I never, like, until now, I didn't think about that. It's almost like we were being trained and groomed to be the blacks who were good enough to be with the whites.
Because I'm about 15 years older than you, and when I went to the IPS maintenance program, we had to apply. And people didn't get picked. And you had to get a letter, like from somebody, a teacher, saying that, you know, you would be good. Especially with this magnet program that I took at Broad Ripple, it was 3 classes. It was three block classes you had to take. It was very intense. You talked about, you know, so, I mean, you was really like, you know, almost like preparing for college, you know, on a lower level to be accepted into those programs. So.
And it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm like you said, one of those black girls or whatever, because even growing up, getting through school, high school, going to college, starting working for a company, starting my own business, the majority of my clientele, they were white. It wasn't black people. It was all white. Like my business was, I had my black people that supported my business, but the ones that took care of me and my family, they were my white clients. It was a majority. Even like right now, I'm the first and only African American that works for the religious organization where I'm employed. But the one thing about me, I never dumbed down who I am, who I was born to be. I mean, some people will call me extra because I'm one that can fit in. I don't care what the atmosphere is. When I step in, I'm gonna be who I am, but I can run with all the best of them. And that's always been my attitude. But I'm always the same though. I never switch it up. I never change in front of my white clients or my white, like when I go to work, I am who I was created to be unapologetically. Like, this is what you see is what you get. When I'm at home, when I'm out in the public, it's just that is just one of those things. I've never, it's not a like turning on a light switch on and off. What you see is what you get. And if you're uncomfortable with who I am, then that problem is not with me. That issue is with you.
That's a good point. So I went through, I think it does force some people to assimilate differently because so I talked about when I went to in the gifted classes or became known as accelerated classes. So I had the core group of black friends that had been bused. to the area for that class, but they lived in a neighborhood that was near my grandmother.
Okay.
So I always had, but I think at that time, she was one of my best friends. She was white.
Okay.
So I had white friends on this side, black friends on this side. Got in 7th and 8th grade, we moved again. I was in a township school. I had one black friend, like one, maybe 2 core black friends and the majority white friends. It was kind of crazy. So in junior high, I went to high school. Me and those white friends, we separated. They weren't my friends anymore. We got to a bigger environment.
That's right.
And it was no more.
It was because the influence of other people about them relationships.
We weren't friends anymore, and from that moment on, in college, I had no close white friends.
Yeah.
And I went to IU, predominantly white institution, and so from that point on, I had no more core white friends in my life.
Yeah.
But it was okay. We were cordial, I never had any issues with white people, so to speak.
Right.
So then, fast forward to professional life, working in various environments where, where I was on a leadership team with all white people, so I've had to adjust in various ways throughout life, and I think, and I want you all's thoughts on this. So when it comes to talking to children and young people and young adults about race and understanding their blackness in a white world, I remember always being of the mindset that I have to do more.
Yes.
And I do remember, telling my daughter, yes, you have to work twice as hard. I mean, I still believe that we have to work harder to achieve the same things that white people with lesser skill set, lesser abilities, education, etc. just don't. It's simply, I acknowledge better today that there are systems that have been put in place, period, to deny us access to certain opportunities.
Right.
And so when we talk about racism, I feel, so my question is twofold for everyone. Is there something, because we all are parents, so is there something that you believe you could have done differently in preparing your children for what is happening in our world today, or preparing them different when it comes to again, dealing with their blackness in a white world? Because I don't remember my mother saying, when I asked her, could I go over to Trisha's house, and that was my white friend, I don't remember her talking to me about, now, why do you have more white friends than black friends? What are your thoughts on that, on being black, for that matter? I don't remember those conversations happening, and I don't remember having them with my own daughter. And I feel some kind of way about that now, quite honestly. So what do you all think? Do you think there's anything that you could have done differently with your children to get them to the ages that they are now, obviously?
For me, I have always taught the kids, you love all people. Because that's what mama taught me. When you cut yourself, it's gonna be blue until it hit the air. And just having a multi-race family or whatever, I'm one of them. If I could check every box on the application, I will, because you just can't. You can look at me and call me black, but I'm all mixed up. But that's a lot of all of us are. So, but if I could do one thing different, because I've taught my children that, and they've done well, because they have more probably white friends than black friends. My oldest son actually was bullied by the black boys because of how he carried himself. He didn't sag his pants. He didn't, so he was bullied by the black boys because he hung with the white boys. But I would teach them more about, how in school, the history of our culture, the history of America. I would have made sure that I really dug more deeper into explaining our culture and where we derive from and came from, wherever that is from, and really just enforcing it more than them coming home and in the history books and really, oh, go do your assignment and this is, you know, ace that test or whatever. I wish I would have done more of, like right now these days, that I would have really put more time into like my culture, making sure, I mean, they know, of course, Black History Month and all that, but I wish I would have just enforced that a lot more when they were younger than like now trying to like cram it all in, like right now with all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that I talked about it with my kids. For my oldest son, he's 36 now, but he was, I think, in middle school when the OJ thing was going on, and he was an athlete, and I remember a white girl invited him and some friends to a birthday party, and I dropped them off to the party, and I was supposed to go back and get them at a certain time, but I can't remember how he called me or from where he called me, but he ended up at the mall. So it was like 3 black boys, 3 white girls at the mall, and at that time, that worried me. And just so people know, even back then I was worried because I'm like, here there's 3 black boys with 3 white girls at the mall, and the parent dropped them off. There was no parent. So my thought was, I was furious. I told and I went back to get him, and I really let that mother have it because because my thought was it wouldn't take nothing but a prejudiced white man to try to bait my son into a situation where as a child he wouldn't know what was happening to him. You know, to call the police or get something going, or just to stir him up like any human emotion could be stirred up. But he knew what he would be doing to my son. So I know I felt like, even then that I had to like tell them what people are saying now. And I always told my sons, don't wear that hoodie. Long before Trayvon Martin. Don't wear that hoodie. Don't wear that hood. Don't wear the hat. Don't keep looking like a copycat. Be yourself. And I said, because these are things that are deemed just for the black culture, and you're marked with these things. And I understand them. At that time, my sons wanted to rebel. They wanted to say, well, who would... Oh, and they played basketball and they couldn't wear braids. That was the thing. They had to cut their braids, and one of my sons, he refused to play because the coach said no braids. So all those things, came into play. And, in order for us to play on the playing field, we had to conform because we wasn't going to get an opportunity. And yeah, do I agree with what you said earlier? Yeah, a lot of systems are put in place to hold us back. And to to make sure that we don't get a head start, or not even start evenly, let alone a head start. So at the end of the day, we don't have these conversations because they're uncomfortable, because a lot of white people will never admit that, yep, I got a head start and on you, and I'm gonna try to keep one. But if they would ever just come out and say that, that would be too much like being right. They're not. So my opinion of what's going on right now in race relationships is that it's almost like it's just a white people war. Because we're in the same position. We've never changed our position. Right now it's about the white people that say they're Christian and that's gonna do the right thing about every human being, and the white people that are just bullies. And what they need to come to terms with is the white people that are real Christians. You have to stand up. And you have to stand up. And because these people that are bullying not only other brown and black people, they're actually bullying you.
That's right.
Because what they haven't realized yet, they're just using you. It is really not about race. They only use race to bait the white people to make them feel superior, so that you will help them stay in control over the other races. Because at the end of the day, this is a set of bullies. And they're bullying everyone because white people can clearly see when you don't agree with them, they're going to treat you like the brown and black people.
That's right.
They're going to do the same thing to you. So that makes it not about race, it becomes about hate. These are people who just hate. These are people who are just bullies, and these are people who just insecure themselves, and they want a head start. They want to get in front of everybody. They want to get in front of the line. They want to be at the top, and they use other white people to help them gain that. So it's more about the quality and the character traits of certain white people that have been in charge and been able to set these systems in place. And the other white people, because there's more of them, you're going to have to stand up. Because at some point, they're going to turn on you too.
Amen to that.
Man.
Wow.
It's heavy. Just going along with the question, I think for me, I just wish I was brutally honest earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I spent so much. I've raised 2 girls, one who was or is brown skinned with coarse hair, one who was light skinned with fine hair.
Right.
And I spent so much time making sure that they didn't clash with each other that I didn't spend enough time getting them to understand the bigger picture of what was getting ready to happen, because the sport that both of my girls wound up loving and excelling in was soccer.
Okay.
And you know, speaking specifically about the little one with the fine hair and the lighter complected skin, I remember we had moved to a particular soccer league, and I remember her being the new girl on the team, and everybody kind of laying like, right, and you know, because of how I was raised, and through athletics, I've always enjoyed making people who doubted me look dumb.
Yes.
And my daughter, who was just athletically gifted without even thinking that way, just the competitive nature, it was already in her, right? So I could see not so much the parents on our sideline, but the parents on the other team. You know, my daughter was playing a modest game, but she wasn't playing in her position, and the coach moved her. And I remember one of the dads like, the little one, get her. Man, my daughter's never been the biggest on the field. And she was just dogging that little girl. I mean, the dad was red, furious, and had we been in another setting, he would have let out some racial slurs. You know what I mean? Like, I could hear him already, the little black girl, you know, light-skinned one. And, you know, so I remember having a conversation about my daughter, or with my daughter, telling her, before you decided to, well, really before she got moved to a certain position in that game, the cheers were different. The attention you were getting was different. And then you started scoring goals. I was like, did you notice how all of a sudden it was, and now everybody wants to know your name? They wasn't asking us before the game, hey, what's her name? What's your daughter's name? Right? Before the game, it was, which daughter is yours? We're not only black parents. Okay, whatever. All right. The black kid. Right? And I told her, I said, by the end of the game, it was, did you notice like everybody knew your name? Nobody cared. I said, nobody cared before you scored the first goal. The second goal woke them up like, wait, I think we got something. Right?
If you were asset.
And I was, and so,
that's it.
you know, that is what opened the door for me to start having that conversation with both of them, because I wanted them to see, I want you to see how differently they treat you based on what you're able to do and not based on who you are.
That's right.
And I wish I wouldn't have waited until, let's just say they might have been like 8 and 10, I think. I wish I would have had those conversations then. But that day kicked in you gotta watch Roots. You gotta watch Mississippi Burning. Like it kicked that in. And the little one is still kind of like, I'll watch it, but the big sister like, and I'm gonna watch Boys in the Hood too. And you know, so I just really wish for me, I would have started the process earlier, because now tying it into 2020, even though they're prepared and they see it and they like, yo, you been, come on, give me some pops. I think they would have been further ahead to be leaders if they needed to be. And that's really what I always wanted them to be, not just a participant, but to be a leader in the fight against that before we even got to a point where, again, we're watching. And I say again, we're watching the police kill somebody on camera or hurt somebody on camera, because it's not the first time we've seen it. I mean, it's just, this has been the catalyst, and I'm excited that it's the catalyst. Hopefully black people understand that. Don't be mad at your brother because he wasn't on the front line with you, because if he's a lawyer, he shouldn't be on the front line. Because when you go to jail, somebody got to bail you out. And if he the money, he should be on the front line, because he got to pay the lawyer that's coming to bail you.
It's called position, and everybody has a position. Everybody has a role. But we're going to do some she-mail before we wrap up.
Yeah, we're going to have to come back to this one day.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn to pick. This question says, What aspects make a relationship easier to manage and stay in a comfortable yet growing space?
That's deep.
Woo!
That's a lot. Maybe everybody should take
Say that one more
aspect.
time.
Yeah.
What aspects make a relationship easier to manage and stay in a comfortable yet growing space? And make sure y'all can hear me too. What aspects make a relationship easier to manage and stay in a comfortable yet growing space? We'll start with the ladies since there's more y'all.
I'll go first and I'll be quick. Just realizing that in relationships that people are still broken, even after they have healed from things. We're still broken in some kind of way. And then just remembering that even if it's a friendship or a relationship, it takes 100, 105, 110, 120, 150 if you really percent, because that 50-50 thing does not ever pan out. So if you have to be willing to be intentional and go above and beyond to make a friendship or relationship work.
That's where I was going with
Oh,
it.
Keep going then.
Intentionality.
Yeah, yeah,
Intentionality in all things.
Yeah,
And if, having a lifelong situation, whether you're dating, I'm married, and I married later in life. I say I'm married as a seasoned adult. So I had a lot of experiences already going in. And so having to keep it growing and sustaining it, being intentional in all things, and giving attention, intentional in effective communication, intentional in accepting the good, the bad, the ugly about another person. Because if it's one-sided, it won't grow. It'll stay stagnant or fizzle.
Right. Okay. I would say compatibility is important. I call that's the foundation. Because without compatibility, you don't have anything to stand on. If, for instance, if you have to know what you like and what you want, and you got to have a deal breaker. If I've asked some people, what are your deal breakers? If you don't have any, then you fall for everything. Because you have to already have a foundation of who you are and what you're going to accept. So, and that would be different. That would look different for different people. So, with that compatibility, because that's what you're going to grow on, you have to realize, because you're constantly evolving, people are constantly changing, and you're talking to a divorced person. So I could say, from experience, people evolve into different directions. And sometimes it's nobody's fault, especially when you get married young. I got married at 22. So I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what kind of woman I was going to be. So that's just a luck and draw if you get married that young and you continue to grow on the same page. So if that doesn't happen, then, more likely you're going to split because, you're growing to the right, they're growing to the left. Neither to say one's better or worse or right or wrong, but at the end of the day, it's not compatible. So in order to you have to be compatible first in order to grow a thing. So to me, being compatible is like you need the sun, you need the rain, and you need good soil to grow. So if you don't have all those things to make it compatible, and make it work to even grow, like you said, it's not going to grow. It's not going to bloom. So you need certain ingredients and certain things, and it's your job to know what those things are. So that's how I say, what you need to do, and you need to be willing to cut your losses and just take it as an experience.
I would say purpose.
Okay.
And I'll say that a lot of people talk about love in a relationship, and that's important. For me, love is what establishes the relationship. But purpose is what drives it. Like that's the engine, right?
Right.
And I feel like love is like a car, right? And if we jump into this love thing together, and we have and not just a purpose, but a unified purpose, right? Like if we all going in the car and we say we going to Florida, right? We in our car. Now we got our purpose, we got our point, we got our destination that we want to hit. We get to Florida, but we get there together. So I think of purpose, but even more so a unified purpose that we both agree that we want to get. If it's marriage, then let's get there. But I also think from a male perspective, one of your purposes should be for your mate to be the best version of them, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to, and I've made this mistake plenty of times. I don't want to preach to the choir like I've been this guy I am today for a long time.
Right.
But if my purpose is to see you be the best version of you,
Right.
then the cheating that goes away,
Yes.
right? Because I know that takes away from the purpose.
Yeah.
All right, if I'm cheating on you and I'm beating on you and mistreating you, how can you be the best woman you can be?
Right.
If we married, how can you be the best wife you
Right,
can be?
right.
If we got kids or you came with kids, how can you
Right.
be the best
Yes.
mother you can be?
Yes.
Right.
You going to work with a lump on your head, how you gonna be the best employee you can be, right?
Right,
So all
right.
these different aspects of your life and the things that
Right.
you are a part of and the things
Right.
that you do and the things that are important to you, the
Right.
things that are important to us, our unified purpose. If we stay unified in that purpose and reevaluate and revisit that purpose,
Right.
because once you get married, that can't just be the purpose. Now
Right.
it's to
It
stay
changes.
married.
Yep.
Right. So for me, it's just that purpose. If you
Right.
surround everything you do with purpose,
Yeah.
I feel like you get to where you want to be, and you can get there together.
That's
And
good.
yeah, and people need to understand commitment.
Oh yeah.
Because you could always find somebody to be attracted to. So you can't go back and forth like a palm tree. Just like you just bought a car. What are you gonna do? Keep switching your car out? Because every time they come out with a new car, they might come out with if they come out with a new car every month, every day, you'll be all over the place. So at some point you have to be committed to yourself. And like you said, what's your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And if your purpose is to build a family, you just have to make that selection and do that.
That's good. And
Yeah.
godly purpose.
Yeah, that too.
You know, I think it was a few episodes back where someone asked about, becoming spiritual.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that if I get convicted from a spiritual perspective before anything else, when
Right.
I cause discord in my marriage.
Yeah.
When I'm
Definitely.
acting, displaying ungodly character, let
That's
the
right.
truth be told.
Yeah.
Whether it's through my mouth
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Right.
whatever the case might be.
Look,
And
body
that is a
language.
compass, it is a compass by which I'm able to gauge, the design is already there.
Right.
Regardless of where you sit, the bottom line is the plan is already in place.
Right.
And if there's a breakdown in character, if there's a breakdown in these various areas, and this ain't the show right now,
Right.
but even if we talk about the intimacy piece,
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
God designed that too.
Yes.
And a way that is supposed to go down.
Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
even if there's a breakdown there,
Yeah.
breakdown with character, the way that you are respecting one another,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's just simply going to fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
In one way or another, people being unhappy, and you talked
Yeah.
about cheating and
Yeah.
people not being the best versions of
Yeah.
themselves,
Right.
because it's a hard thing to look in the mirror and say
Yeah.
that you're not holding up your end of the deal.
Right.
And so that's where it is for me.
Yeah.
And everything that I think that we all said
Yeah.
here is just like that's the pathway to growth in relationships.
Yeah, that's good. Good question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excited show. She email.
So we just need to see if we got enough time for another one. But okay, guys, we out of time. And of course, it gets real good with us because we get to the nitty gritty. Like I said, the crew come and do what we do. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.